So, today Bitcoin broke the $18,000 mark. It is now 66% of the entire crypto market. And I thought that now would be a great time to make an argument against Bitcoin, an argument against its dominance within the crypto market. In order to do that, let's start from the beginning. What is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is a software. It is a software that is implemented differently than the way software that we use on our everyday life are implemented. Specifically, the software we use, Google, Facebook, are software that are installed on a computer which is owned by a company, and the company has full control and liability over that server. Every time one user communicates with another user, they do it through their servers. Mega Uploads and RapidShare are a good example of centralized software that are installed on a computer, and then people can upload and download content from that server. In order to get access to that server, I would need to pay its owner, and that's the way it works. Now, you can ask Kim.com, who operated such a service, and he will tell you that it would create some problems with the authorities. So here comes BitTorrent. BitTorrent is a software that instead of being installed on a centralized server, is installed by each user. Each person installed the software on his computer. He allocates storage within his computer, a certain file that can hold other files that can be shared with the entire community. Anyone who downloads that software can share and upload and download content. This way, there is no certain specific computer that you can get a hold on and stop the network from working. Bitcoin works the same way. It is a software that is installed on individual computers. And now, every 10 minutes, one of those computers declares what happened in the last 10 minutes. All right, so which node is going to declare? Well, if you think about it, you might come up with an answer, a random function. Well, there are thousands or tens of thousands of nodes. Randomly, we select a node. It says what happened in the last 10 minutes. He cannot fake transactions. He can only censor them. However, since it is randomized, we solve the problem, yes? Well, that's because you live in 2020. Let me explain, and I'll do it through a riddle. The riddle goes like this. I will tell you a story, and you need to figure out what's wrong with that story. And the story goes like this. Edward Jones was sitting in his porch in London in 1923, and he was reading in the newspaper an article that read, "Yesterday, a man who served as a pilot in the First World War died in a car crash." What's wrong with the story? Do you know the answer? If you don't, you can pause and think about it. Here's a hint. If you lived in 1923, you would immediately know something is off with this story. Well, what is it? Very simple. In 1923, there was no such thing as the First World War. It was the Great War. The First World War became that only after the Second World War. We today live with that retrospect, and therefore it makes sense to us, but not to a person who lived in 1923. So you see, the reason you think about random function as a solution to find the node that is going to declare what happened in the last 10 minutes is because you live in 2020. Think about 2009. A group of people are working on that software. There are 0 people who download software on their computer to validate transactions of any kind. It simply doesn't exist yet. Nobody's thinking about it. You see, if you have people downloading the software, they can interact with one another without a central server. But how do you choose which node is going to declare what happened? How can you make sure in 2009 that there isn't one person who has many nodes and therefore whatever randomized function you're going to use, it's going to be him. Now keep in mind, each user creates its own transaction. No node can fake transactions. What a malicious node can do, it can censor your transaction. It can decide not to include it in a block. And if there is a monopoly on mining, monopoly on these nodes, then the whole the whole software is pointless in the sense that you can be censored. The only way to prove it, I've just said, is mining. If I had to summarize blockchain, it would be that people download their own software and interact with one another without a central server. It created a community that did not exist. Just like in the 60s, you did not have thousands of people sitting on their own computer programming. It simply did not exist. Only after computing and people using software that this evolved. This is the biggest picture. You see, take Filecoin for example. Every time you hear of a new blockchain, all right, you need to keep in mind that the only thing they can do is leverage the idea of people downloading their own software into their own computer and interacting with others without a central server. So going back to Filecoin. Filecoin is, think of Dropbox. Dropbox is a central server. You put your information on it, and wherever you are, you can access that information. Instead, people can download the software on their computer, allocate a storage within their computer, much like BitTorrent, and allow people to store something with them. And every person on the network does that, and he is rewarded with a coin. And that coin has value to the people who wish to store information, Now this is, if you think about it, revolution. I mean, it allows people to store information without anyone being able to censor their information or provide them from putting that information. And the entire transaction between the people, it's YouTube without Google. That's what it is. It's Facebook without the company behind it. That's blockchain. And I think that Bitcoin opened up a Pandora box, but it within itself would lose value because other blockchains are going to create applications that people use and have great value in them because of that technology. But it specifically is a software that no one can upgrade, and it has the technology of 2009, and it becomes more obvious as time goes. Ethereum, which is something that I favor over Bitcoin, simply because it evolves. And if you get the concept, adoption is the most important thing. You see, if the idea is people downloading software to their own computer and interact with others, well, how many people do it? That's the only important thing. How many software engineers are working on these projects? How many projects are there? And in that sense, I think that as time goes, Bitcoin will become obsolete. Blockchain is people downloading software on their computers and interact with each other, creating a Google or a Facebook that is decentralized. If you get this, you understand the absurdity, the oxymoron in government blockchain. It is nonsensical, period. All right? If you understand what blockchain is, it's not the fact that there are blocks every 10 minutes. That's not the, it's a feature within blockchain, and you can mimic it in another software. But as long as it is not people running the software on their own computers, it's not blockchain. And the more you think about it, the more I think about it, it is obvious to me that these software are going to create a huge amount of value. And Bitcoin created and still has a lot of value because this community that it created grows. But then again, as time goes, I think it will be more and more obvious that is not a very simple technology to move one token to another, but rather if people download software on their own computers and interact with one another, and that creates the network, the things that we can do. There are many different types of projects, prediction markets and many others, which create huge value. And in order to interact with these softwares, you would need these tokens, these coins, these code that allows you to interact within the blockchain system. So that's my thought on the 66% that Bitcoin currently holds. And I predict that in time it would go to the low teens, and much value is going to be created under that concept as I explained. So yeah, I mean, congratulations. It is exciting times. People are going to hear about it the higher it goes, and the more people join, the more people interact with that software, the more options, opportunities, and I can completely understand why people say it's the new internet. It is really a new way for us to build applications, the same applications we use today, without the limitations they hold today, being completely sovereign over your software and over your money. I mean, these tokens will have value. They will have value. And if you own them, you will attain that value. These are exciting times. Congratulations to Bitcoin and for the entire community.